Welcome to our first video on circles. This video will be relatively short. We're just going to write down some different parts of circles. As you can see, this first page of circles has line segments like CD or lines like line HI, intersecting or cutting through the circle. Here we have another line EF. So we're going to take just a minute and label these. These have some vocabulary that you may have heard and you may have not heard in the past. The first thing I'm going to do is highlight this point right there in red. You don't have to highlight it in red. I just wanted to make note of that being the center of the circle. That is the most middle point. It's going to be very important to us in just a little bit when we watch the rest of our day one notes. Now, some of you may have heard of something called a radius. I'm going to go ahead and label the radius, and then we'll talk about what it is briefly. RADIUS. The radius is a line segment, which means it does not go on forever. It starts at the center and stops at the edge of the circle. In a circle, there are many of these line segments that we call a radius. For example, I could draw one that goes this way. I could draw one that goes this way or this way. There are so many of these types of line segments that someone decided at one point or another to call them radii if there are more than one. Oops, let me grab a pen, eraser, a real pen. I'm going to write that name down here. Radii means more than one radius. Okay, so those, some of you might have remembered those, some of you might not have remembered those. Now, another word that you may have seen before, diameter. And a diameter is a special type of line segment. It crosses the circle in the middle. It cuts through the center. So if I'm the diameter and I started over here at A, see how it's going to go through that center point, and then it's going to keep on going and stop at the other opposite side of the circle at point B. So diameter, we could call that segment AB. The radius, let's see, that's OG. There's our segment. Our center is just point O. So just a little bit of that naming. We're not going to be doing a lot of naming, so don't get stressed about that. Now, if you look at line segment CD, it behaves a lot like the diameter because it goes from one side of the circle to the other side of the circle. But the difference between CD and the diameter is that the diameter goes through the middle, through the center. CD does not do that. So we call that a chord. The diameter is actually considered a chord. It's just a special chord. So they gave it a special name. This particular line, HI, I'm going to label it here, line HI. This line touches the circle twice. It almost looks like a chord, except it keeps on going. See the arrows? And it touches the circle here and here. And it also has these arrows. So when it keeps on going like that, we call that a secant line. And I wrote that kind of messy. Let me fix that up a little bit. A secant line. And then down here, all the way at the bottom, notice that this is also a line, but it is not inside the circle. In fact, it only touches the circle one time. I'm going to put that here. Touches the circle once. And where does it do that? Here at point G. So this kind of line behaves totally differently because it sort of goes right next to the circle, touches it once, and keeps on going. And we call that a tangent line. And as we go through this unit, we're going to be seeing all these different kinds of lines, line segments. We're not going to have to, except for today, name them and get all specific about what they're called, but I want you to understand the different vocabulary as we, excuse me, as we go through the unit. So we'll come back together and we'll practice a couple of these just to get the vocabulary, and then we'll move on. Thank you, guys.